This episode we are sponsored by Buy Small Press Online. Do you want to tell them all about it, love?
Do you want me to read that bit there?
Go on.
Do you want me to read it all? Buy Small Press Online is the brand new comics marketplace. Looking for a place to purchase the latest in what small press has to offer? Or are you a creator looking to build an online store? Then this site is just right for you. Head over to buysmallpress.com/lakes and start exploring today.
So it's a brand new website. Aaron behind Fair Spark Books, Little Heroes Comics, has created this website. Essentially, it's Etsy, but focused on
small press
comic creators. Much cheaper. There's hardly any money has to go.
Yeah.
To the website, so that as a creator, you're keeping the majority of the pennies.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, very easy to use and very easy to navigate.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in signing up as a creator, get on there. But if you're just interested in finding some comics,
because it can be hard to find small press comics in one place.
And at the minute, we can't go out and do a comic show.
No, so you're not going to find. I mean, all these people. You know, you'd find at a Comic Con and you'd be able to browse. It's like having a Comic Con just to look at on your computer. You can go around and have a look.
Without the sweaty people
without
mingling
armpits,
next to you.
because I'm only ever armpit height. There's a lot of armpits involved.
So jump on the website, buysmallpress.com and have a look.
Yeah, definitely. Put away your umbrellas. Get out your mint cakes. Hike to your nearest chair. Pop in your headphones and get ready for the next episode of the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcasts with your hosts, live from the Lakes, the practically perfect Nicole Bates, and don't get him angry, Ian Loxham.
Hello and welcome to the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast, episode 92. My name is Ian.
And I'm Nikki.
And we are here with Hannah Berry today.
We are, but we've been to the pub. Yay!
Okay, we'll go into that. Let's not discuss the episode. No, let's just talk about being at the pub.
We went to the pub. I'm
we went
very
to
excited.
the pub and we had a drink.
We did.
Well done.
I know.
How was that?
It was fun. I was a bit nervous. But
Why?
It was, well, because, you know, the COVID could attack at any moment.
What, out of nowhere?
Out of nowhere. It hides behind bushes, everyone knows.
Okay.
And leaps out at you.
There was a man there that had no shoes on.
He had no shoes and his feet looked like paws.
Or hobbits' feet.
You kept saying hobbits'
Hobbits' feet.
We just hope they didn't have good hearing too.
But he went
not the feet, the man.
to the toilet. I found out we were going up to the toilet.
Yeah.
Or whatever
We put his
he's
mask.
doing.
Well, he came back and got his mask.
He put his mask on, not his shoes on.
But then I was thinking, it's the same thing, isn't it? I mean,
What? Mask and shoes?
No, not mask and shoes. Just that kind of, I don't know.
Living in the wild.
Yeah, I can understand it if you were living in a field
That's fine.
and going for a nice walk in the countryside. I can almost understand that. I love the feel of
But what I
grass
mean with
and
chips,
mud between my toes.
I don't want to see nails that look like chips.
It was odd, but it was quite nice to be sitting there in the sunshine drinking. I had a cider.
It can be sunny in Kendal, people.
It can be. It was very
News.
warm. That was it, though.
Yeah, that's it.
And people watching again. I quite enjoyed that.
And did you see anything interesting other than feet?
No.
No.
No, nothing.
Okay. So as I was saying,
Okay.
being the main host here,
We went to a record fair as well.
we got Hannah Berry on to talk about being Comic Laureate 2019 to 2021.
She is one of the loveliest people in the world.
In the world.
In the world ever, I think. She's so happy as well.
Yeah.
She's such a lovely person.
And she plays D&D. Other
She's
role-playing board games are available.
Well, she's playing another role-playing thing, but calling it D&D. Like we call our Warhammer 1 D&D.
Yes,
when
everyone.
it's not, it's Warhammer.
We've also got Pete and Mike returning. Part 4 of their Yakapedia.
Have we not taken their Wi-Fi off them yet?
I don't think we can.
Oh, God. Right.
Pete's in Wales, isn't he? It's another world.
Another world.
And
They've got Wi-Fi in Wales. No, I'm joking.
top reviews of Blat by Matt Greaves. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the guests that have been announced for this year's festival.
Yes. Ooh.
And we have 2 exclusive guests to announce.
Yeah.
That haven't been announced yet.
Yeah.
You've ruined the...
I did it. It fell off.
Oh, jeez.
I've had a cider and a wine.
Yes. Anyway, should we get on with it? Yeah. Before we do that, I just want to talk about another podcast that's out there that I said to you I actually physically hate.
And no, I physically hate this podcast, but listen to it, Nikki, and then I'm going to go on about how much I love it.
I hate John Tucker.
Poor man.
Because he creates these amazing comics that are intriguing and confusing and mind-bending. And then he goes and creates a type of podcast I wish I had the genius to create. Something I've tried and just couldn't piece it together.
Uh-huh.
And he's done it.
Yeah.
And so for that, I hate him. And I hate the podcast, but I recommend you listen to it. This Foul Earth, just search for that. It's just one-man monologue. Mm-hmm. And it's what I would love to be able to do. Mm-hmm. And I can't get my mind to do it.
Well, that's why you have John Tucker instead.
John something else is what I think. But I won't say it because we're friendly on this show.
And you like the podcast.
Yeah, go and listen to it. Damn him. Not happy. So, yeah, no, it's really good. And it's annoyingly good. So, let's talk about the lakes. So, we've got some guests announced. Mm-hmm. Quite a few, actually.
Yes.
So we'll go through them. Mm-hmm. There's one on there in particular, but we'll get to that.
Sorry. It's not like RuPaul's Drag Race.
Hey?
You know when she says that.
Oh, right.
Your Majesty.
Should we do these in order then? I'll let you start.
Oh, really?
Yeah, go for it.
So we have Chris Condon. Is the writer of image comic series That Texas Blood with artist Jacob Phillips.
I feel it should be That Texas Blood.
I'm not going to do it like that. Okay, that's fine. He was born and raised in a small New Jersey transit hub of... Where's that? Metuchen? I'm carrying on now. A stone's throw from Behemoth that is New York City. From the Behemoth that is New York City, and has devoted himself to the mythical power of storytelling from an early age.
A bit of cider stops you
I know,
reading
right?
anything.
Reading.
Anything at all.
Talking.
Nicola Jennings originally trained as a theatre designer and started work towards designing for opera. You've got to say opera. Opera, like that.
Okay.
She began caricaturing
2 pints of Guinness and look at the state.
For London Daily News in 1987 and went on to work for The Mirror and The Observer and now can be seen regularly in The Guardian. Mm-hmm. The next one, my dear,
is Michael Lark, is the artist and co-creator of Lazarus and Lazarus Risen from Image Comics.
30-odd years in the industry, drawn Spider-Man, Captain America.
Did he start when he was a fetus then? He doesn't look that old.
I'm sure he'll take that very nicely.
Well, it's a compliment.
Need to tell him. The next one is...
You're taking all the glory on this, aren't you?
Sir Jeff Lemire.
Sir Jeff Lemire.
Multi-award winning cartoonist and writer published by Marvel, DC and Valiant, and his amazing individual work, Essex County, Black Hammer, Sweet Tooth, and many more. Underwater World.
Yes.
Yeah, Jeff is coming to the Lakes. I'm proud to say.
It's because of you.
Well, we work with the Lakes. We do the podcast for the Lakes, but we've never actually directly done something that's affected. And just me contacting Jeff and interviewing him for episode 100 coming soon has allowed that contact to form with the Lakes, and I'm very proud.
You're very proud of yourself, aren't you? Yes.
And I can't wait to meet Jeff. And I'm going to be like a sad little puppy again, but in real life.
He's such a lovely man.
Where I can't just switch off the Skype and hide. So, yeah, that is amazing news. I'm looking forward to that as we go on.
Lou McKeever, a.k.a. Blue Lou, is a political cartoonist who has worked on a range of publications whose credits work for The Canary, The Guardian, The Independent, TES, The Morning Star and New Statesman.
Greg Rucka, a best-selling and multi-award winning author of dozens of novels. He is also the co-creator of Lazarus Risen with Michael Lark. The cat is going nuts there. Keep on going, my dear. There's a long list.
Is that our next one?
Yeah.
Sorry, I looked away at the cat.
Is that the next one on the screen?
Martin Rosen is a multi-award-winning political cartoonist, illustrator, graphic novelist, broadcaster and poet. Over the past 4 decades, his work has appeared in almost every publication you can think of. Apart from The Sun, they've never asked him. His work currently features in The Guardian, The Daily Mirror, The New European, I'm good at this, The Critic and Index on Censorship, among other places. I need to put my teeth in as well.
Yeah. stick them in. Did they fall out?
Yeah.
Next, we have Rachel Smith. As a comics creator, whose UK books include Wired Up Wrong, Stand in Your Power, The Rabbit and Quarantine Comics. She's also worked on some Doctor Who, and she's part of the Lakes International Renowned Comics Culture Exchange, working in Prague with the Moravian Regional Library and Frame Festival.
Lovely.
Rachel, as well, has also just been pushed on Adam Buxton's podcast,
Yes.
which is like so cool. Because he's like so cool. In a very nerdy...
He literally lives down the road from my mum.
Yeah, but that's like 50, 60 miles away. But in that
Yeah,
place,
but
down,
in Norfolk,
that's down
that
the
is
road.
like down the road from my mum.
Yeah, it's such a weird place. Let's not go there. Right, and there's two more which we are now going to
Oh, exclusively
announce. And then if you listen to this like a week later, it'll be announced everywhere else. So,
But yeah, if you listen to it now, tonight, when we've released it.
Oh dear. Right, do you want to start? Go for it. So first, exclusive.
Is Jack Teagle. He's a freelance illustrator based in southwest England who's worked on a large variety of fields, including editorial, character design, storyboarding, poster, product, textile design, and worked as a cartoonist for Front magazine from 2010 to 2014.
And following that is Steve Yewell. His professional work with Grant Morrison on the licensed toy series Zoids and the pages of Marvel UK Weekly Spider-Man and the Zoids, before moving on to draw 2000 AD character Zenith and a load for DC Comics as well. So another two great names for the festival. I mean, this is just the beginning.
Yes, there does seem to be a lot of names coming out on this
There's
one.
some, obviously, that didn't make it last year.
Yeah.
And then there's some new ones, such as Jeff and others, that have been added on there as well. So
yeah,
it's exciting.
It's very
it feels,
exciting.
I think going to the pub today,
yeah, it feels like
going to the shops.
Yeah, a bit of normality crept in. Even though you're wearing your mask, you're keeping your distance, you're sanitising your hands. It felt like humanity and just people are out there, and we're all just ready.
Thought Bubble as well. They started ramping up things with and we've got passes coming for that. So again, it's another thing. It's just like these events are going to be happening.
Yeah, our life will start charging onwards again.
We just need the cinema now.
Yep, cinema and me to pass my bike test.
Oh,
Yay!
God. Yeah, if you live in Kendal in 2 weeks, stay off the road. It's just
just
not
Sunday.
safe.
Sunday
not
I'm
safe.
testing, so if anyone could stay off the roads whilst
Luckily,
I pass my test.
she has drinks over the lakes weekend, so she won't be able to get on a bike.
That's very true. That's very true indeed.
The world is safe, and it'd be too wet.
Oh, yeah.
There's we've got no comics to talk about. We've got some to review.
Yes, I am reviewing some.
TV has been sort of taking over again. Winter Soldiers continued.
Yes,
being
I'm enjoying
interesting.
That. Yep. I like it because it's completely different from WandaVision in the fact it's much more low key.
Low key.
It's much more low key. And I don't know, there's something nice about it, but it's got such a dark side. Again, like WandaVision had such a dark side.
Not to the extent as WandaVision.
Yeah, but I
think,
very... Yeah, but you're watching someone just go a bit mental, aren't you, at the minute?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, oh yeah, I was thinking of somebody else.
Yeah, we can't let anything out. But
we'll do a full sort of opinions and thoughts when it's finished.
When it's finished, a
as a
couple
whole.
of weeks after, to let everyone catch up.
But yeah, no, it's interesting, it's good, it's showing what Disney is just leaving Marvel in its own sort of TV world to create, unlike they seem to do with Star Wars.
Yeah.
They're just doing such good stuff.
No, at the minute.
You got Loki, which is looking interesting.
Paying your monthly subscription
yes,
at the minute.
That's true. Loki's looking interesting.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah, I'm
Obviously,
interested in
we
that.
can't say anything on that yet, but it does look interesting. Mm-hmm. The other thing we watched, which I don't know if you've wiped it from your mind yet, but 4 hours of Justice League.
Oh, God. 4
the
hours.
Snyder Cut.
Okay.
We're a bit behind because we went to record a couple of weeks ago, but we haven't. But yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
yes.
What was your opinions of the original Justice League movie?
It was awful.
It was a bit bland. It was a bit
bland, and it rushed through character development on like the Flash and Cyborg.
It
didn't give anything, did it? I found it. Yeah, it was laughably bad.
Batman was a comic character.
Yeah,
almost,
he was just like, I can't do that. Oh, yeah, and yeah, it wasn't great.
Right.
No.
So
yeah,
compared to that, the Snyder Cut.
I mean, it was better.
It was much better.
It was much better. It was a more cohesive film, and thank God they brought in the backstories for Flash and Cyborg.
Well, not even just that. Cyborg
better.
became almost a central character as well.
He wasn't the central character, I don't think. Of course he wasn't, no.
But he became one of the main characters rather than just a superhero on the side helping those guys. You know, it became something important within the story.
Yeah, and so did Flash.
And so did Flash as well.
The main crux of the matter.
That leads up to the Flashpoint film that's coming down the line.
Yeah,
I feel.
So that built up that bit. But it was a lot better, but they could have cut an hour out, especially the singing. They could have cut an hour, and I didn't think some of the CG was that good. Obviously, because it was it unfinished? Was it
No, because you went back and spent like another 60, 70 million on it.
Well, they could have done better. So it was good. It was a lot better. It's a much better, cohesive film.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say it was a great film.
I'd say it's a good film, though.
It's a good film, but it's not a great
film.
It's not up there.
It's the best of the Snyder films.
Mm.
As in Superman, then Batman versus Superman. You've not even seen Superman. Do
you know there's a reason?
and yeah, it's sort of something I didn't agree with, this whole release of Snyder Cut, but I'm glad they did. I'm glad they gave him that chance to show what his plans were.
You didn't agree with the pressure of fans to get what they wanted. Did you not agree with that?
Well, yeah, I think, you make something and that's it.
There was a reason why this all happened, wasn't there? That's the thing.
Well, then they should have still stuck with his original plan. I don't know. They shouldn't have brought a big director on for starters.
But they didn't know. I suppose they were like, oh my God.
They should have brought someone who was willing just to follow that.
Yeah, but the pen pushers would have brought someone in who could just cut and paste and shove it all together and get something out.
But they didn't just cut and paste, completely changed it.
Yeah, I know. You know what I mean, though, don't you? It was like, right, you got 2 weeks to finish this off type of thing.
But I feel if that film, obviously, it would never have come out as it was, because it wouldn't have come out as 4 hours if he was to do it when it originally came out. It would have been a 3-hour movie, probably.
Which you could have definitely got it down to 3 hours.
Film. But I think I would have been more interested than to see this universe continue. Whereas now it's kind of collapsed. There's no Batman is refreshed again coming up,
Yeah, there's going to be no follow-on, which is a shame because it leads so much.
Although the Flash does follow on, but then that can lead to opening other things. But yeah.
Yeah, it left so much for another film, didn't it? Which I don't think they needed to have put in to this.
Well,
film.
he's showing what his plan was, I suppose, because he
knows
he's
could have done that in like a special release.
Well,
this
was a special. This was
but they didn't have to do it as your normal.
He knows he's not going to do another one, I suppose. So he's just like, right, this is it. This is my plan. This is what was going to happen.
Yeah, I just think there's some things I don't think it needed to be said at the end, but that's just me.
Did you like the Joker at the end? That's not spoiled because it's everywhere that it's in there.
No,
he was better than he was in Suicide Squad.
Well, that wasn't hard.
No, I know it wasn't.
But no, I couldn't give a monkey's.
I think it's hard to be a good Joker because there's been too many good versions of that character.
Jack
Nicholson's an excellent Joker
in his own
for the 90s.
Yeah, Cesar Romero, best Joker ever.
The best Joker, and there's no question on this. And
Heath Ledger.
No.
Not Heath Ledger.
No, I will fight anyone to the death. Mark Hamill is the best Joker.
Animated Joker.
It doesn't matter.
That way.
It's all about the character at the end of the day. And Mark Hamill's voice and the way he acts and the way he is that character, in my opinion, is the best version of that character.
True, because you don't even know it's Mark Hamill, do you?
I didn't know until I was, an adult.
44. And he's not even 44.
So, no, in my opinion, that is the best version.
Okay.
Yeah. So there, take that. But yeah, I think if you're considering watching it, I think it's worth watching. The fact it's in acts means you can watch it over a couple of viewings if you want to, quite easily. I
mean, we had to get up to make sure we didn't get deep brain thrombosis halfway through, but that was about it.
I enjoyed it. I didn't feel it was 4 hours, and I did.
I felt every minute. But it was a lot better.
Now you know what it's like living with you.
Bliss.
Yeah.
Bliss
yeah.
For me.
Yeah. Take that. Gosh, I'm well hard. On that note, we better move on.
Yes, you better.
So next episode, we hope to continue the Comic Laureate theme.
Yep.
But I can't promise that just yet.
No.
Other than that, we've got some great guest plans. But for the meantime, enjoy all our little boys.
Yep.
Mike, Pete and Tom.
Yep.
and the wonderful lady.
I like to think of them as minions.
Minions. And listen to our minions and Hannah.
And Hannah. Oh, she's so lovely. She's getting to keep the cloak as well.
Cloak.
It's his comics that smell, not him. Prepare for all the small press goodness that he can squeeze into 5 minutes. Your host, Tom Scratch and Sniff Stewart.
Hello and welcome to Small Press, the Small Press review section of the Comic Art Festival podcast. With me, Tom Stewart. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I got through a Kickstarter recently from a tremendous cartoonist, somebody who I very much admire his work, and it is Blat #1 by Matt Greaves. Now, I've not got this through in hard copy, although I did order it on Kickstarter as a hard copy with original art and everything as well. So if you were one of the lucky people to get on the Blat Kickstarter, you'll be getting yours pretty soon, and you would have got your digital copy through. So that's what I'm working my way through today. Blat is like a one-man anthology, kind of, I would say, comparable to 8-Ball or Optic Nerve. It's that kind of heavy influence that's going throughout it as well. There's kind of a Dan Clowes, Charles Burns, Adrian Tomina sort of look about it. But he takes a lot of influence from a lot of different cartoonists. Matt's had previous comics before. He's got a series called Chip McFits that's absolutely incredible. And now he's bringing this anthology with a couple of different stories in it. The first being Gone Swimming, and then it's followed up with No One Wants to Be Here, and then it's followed up thirdly by Oh Boy. There's other little bits in there. There's like a 2-panel strip about Matt at the very, very start that's incredible. There's like little pin-up wee bits. There's a strip at the very, very back that's like a mixture of loads of different made-up advertisements, but there's also advertisements throughout there for Matt's work, like Chick McFits, and there's little ads for like his original artwork and stuff as well in the back. But there's also a little strip at the bottom as well called Commute that actually had me in stitches. What's great about this, though, there's another strip as well called Albert in the back, and a little pin-up and stuff throughout it as well. So it's not just the 3 stories, but he advertises it as that on the front cover, and then has a little bit that says plus more. I'm getting ahead of myself talking about the end here. It's suggested for mature readers on the front, and you know, a bit that I actually really, really enjoyed that's printed on the front is the fact that it just says £3 in the bottom right-hand corner. Put it right out there straight away. Like, this will be £3. It's going to be printed on the cover of the actual comic. It will always be £3. I think that's brilliant. The great thing about this little anthology is that Matt is almost like showcasing all his different styles. He's not just got one designated style, which is another Clowes influence, because Clowes has all these different influences that is kind of showcased predominantly. I mean, you could see it through his whole body of work, but predominantly you could see it in Wilson. And this is kind of like that in a way that you can see all the different styles that he's got, but he changes it up slightly and makes it a bit more cartoony in places, a bit more realistic in other places. Like the first one is almost like a weird autobiographical kind of story, but it's about a small boy that goes surfing and has a good time with what he calls his Auntie Jenny. I'm assuming is like a stepmom or something. And then it cuts to 19 years later and it's him out with his pals on a night out. I didn't like this strip as much, but I'm not really one that likes like night outs and stuff. But so if you're a fan of like seeing the antics in which somebody gets up to on a night out in a kind of in Manchester or whatever, it's well worth it. And it has like this little bit at the start with surfing in California that actually pays off eventually. You'll see where it goes, but it's got a really nice splash of colour in it. Most of this is all black and white, and there's just this really lovely splash of colour in Gone Swimming. There's a bit of dark undertones and stuff in Gone Swimming as well, but it's great. It's really, really good, but it's probably my least favourite out of all the strips that are in Blat. my favourite by far has to be No One Wants to Be Here. And this is something that I think about all the time, is about all the hours in the day in which you have to actually have any free time. And he goes through it at the very, very start. Like, the first 3 panels is, you spent last night dreading it, and here it is. Monday, 6:30am, it's time to get up for work. That's right, another 40 plus hours of doing something you don't want to do. Subtract that from a week's 168-hour total, along with another 56 hours for sleep, if you're lucky enough to get your 8 hours, and you're left with 72. Like, and I always sit and wonder, like the amount of stuff that we have to do day in, day out, how much do you actually get for yourself? Oh, you know, there's 24 hours in a day. Yeah, 24 hours in a day, but you're not awake for 24 hours of it, and 24 hours of that time isn't yours, it's somebody else's in which you're working for. And it's 4 pages, 9 panels to a page of just working through that and all the stuff that comes with everyday life and all the rubbish things of work and everything. And yeah, it's great. And it's got a good language about it as well. And yeah, it gets pretty cursy and stuff throughout it, but it's just fantastic. And all narrated from this kind of bowler hat guy. And then it goes on to Oh Boy, which is all mainly wordless. I think there's only a couple of bits of dialogue at the very end about this guy who gets excited that a punk band, I'm assuming because he's got loads of punk stickers on the back of his laptop and up on the wall and everything. He's got like the Ramones, Black Sabbath, Black Flag, the Cramps. He gets excited because there's this punk band going on tour and he's going to go away down the club and he gets rejected from the club and it's about him trying to get in and stuff. And yeah, it's a great wordless piece. And once again, it's just like, it's a different style every time, you know. One sort of more real, one sort of surreal in a way, / talking about real topics, and then another one that's just sort of really wacky and zany, and it just totally changes every time. You get a completely different feel, but all out of this one guy, you know. And then this last strip, Albert, is just something totally different about a guy in a pub who's the last one there, going to get a taxi home, and the barman trying to get rid of him. Like, it's incredible. I didn't know what to expect from this. It's not exactly a really long piece. All in all, it's only like 22 pages, like between like 20 and 22 pages. So it's not a long piece, but there's a heck of a lot of work has gone into it. My only gripe is that I think Matt wants to maybe tidy up his panels a little bit. They're a bit rough and ready around the edges. There's some of them that are a bit off and overlapped, and you can see ones that have got a bit of thickness about them because they've been going over again and again. I don't know if that's meant or what. They're also, for my liking, they're a bit too thin. That might sound a bit daft, but they just seem a bit thin for what the kind of art that he's got going on, the kind of black and white art that he's got going on. Maybe not for Albert, but for the rest of them, I would have liked to have seen them a wee bit thicker. He's got a really thick kind of, I don't know, like dip pen or paintbrush and ink sort of heavy black style about it. So I think I'd like to see the same replicated on the panels and not so sort of delicate. Absolutely well worth it. I'm sure Matt will have these on sale pretty soon on his store. He's also got a website, www.mattgreaves.com. Matt with 1 T and Greaves spelled Greaves. mattgreaves.com. So that's Blat issue 1. Make sure and get a hold of that. You can also follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Greaves and Instagram at Matt_Greaves. And just a couple of things to tell you about here. At time of recording, it doesn't seem to be sold out yet, but Noah Van Sciver of Fante Bukowski and various other big titles, like Blamo and stuff like that. And he's got a great YouTube channel as well where he interviews other cartoonists and stuff. But he's just put out his new comic book that he's got up for $10 on noahvansciver.bigcartel.com. It's only limited to 500 of them. And I tell you, the postage for it, even though it's coming from the States, actually isn't that much at all. It's only $6. So it's well worth a look. I ordered it through the other day, so I should be getting my copy any minute now. But I'm actually signed up to Noah's Patreon, and a couple of the comics that are on there, I think, is what's coming into that collection altogether. So check that out at noahvanskyver.bigcartel.com, and be sure to check out Noah's YouTube station as well. Speaking of Noah's station, that's actually where I found Bubbles fanzine as well, that I reviewed recently. And when I got my copy of Bubbles fanzine through, I actually got this other little, it was like a big fold-out bit of paper that had all this mass writing on it. And when you looked at all the individual sections, it was almost like a poster, like advertisement / comic zine thing. It was all really haphazardly put together, but it was really interesting. I loved looking at it. It was all typed out and everything, all printed up on this big sort of A3 sheet. And it came from Hype Pup Jr., a paper radio show is what they call it, hosted by Frank Santoro and sponsored by like his pal Hype Pup Jr. that's doing like a dog biscuit company. But it was really interesting. If you look for Fantoro Press, so PHANTOROPRESS, check that out on Instagram, and you'll be able to get all the details you need to, I think, get a hold of these copies. There's like a subscription service that they're setting up. I just love that it's this sort of, you're part of this almost like weird exclusive club, like getting this weird zine thing. I really loved it. I really loved the look of it. But check that out. Also, nip on over to Alex Potts on Instagram. There is loads of Instagram comics out just now. But Alex Potts' one just now is unbelievable. It's some madcap story about this guy. He's on this adventure, like running away from murderous milkmen and meeting this woman who a cafe that hosts to these milkmen, and he's trying to have sex with her, and it's just there's loads of stuff going on. He's gone on an adventure with like a weird guy with a beard where he was giving him a curry back and stuff. Like it's insane. It's absolute insanity. But check it out. I think it's incredible. It's _Alex Potts with 2 T's _. So _Alex Potts _ on Instagram. And also, before I forget, Tribute Press is launching their Patreon for just $1.49. Get 5 pages of comics a week with loads of extras at the weekends. Just try to look away. And the picture in which they put that up with was Good Friday Just Got Wicked, and it's a lovely Darryl Thorpe picture of some guy doing like finger guns on the cross with Mayhem written across his chest, which I think is the George Mayhem strip in which they're firing it off with Justice is Coming on Patreon. So yeah, check that out. Tribute Press, Instagram, and soon to be Patreon. And I think that is all for Small Press this time. Please do send stuff on, because I'd love to just point people in the right direction for Instagram comics, Kickstarters that you've got on the go, big cartel shops, just comics that you've got up in general on Patreon or anything like that, YouTube channels, anything. Give me an email, thatcomicsmell@gmail.com. Oh, before I forget, as well, That Comic Smell issue 1 is still up for sale. fredeggcomics.bigcartel.com. Head on over there and get That Comic Smell issue 1. It's also up on buysmallpress.com, and Gumroad is up digitally as well. And if you're desperate for a copy and don't want to do any of that at all, then just give me a shout at the email address, thatcomicsmell@gmail.com as well, and we'll sort you out with a copy. Also, you can reach me at thatcomicsmell on Instagram and Twitter. Just make sure and label the message as Small Pressed or Comic Art Fest Pod. One of the two, just so that I know the message is for myself for this section. And that's all I have for you, folks. Reach for the trails and read more comics, folks. And I'll see you later. Bye for now. To get in touch, please go to Twitter and Instagram at ThatComicSmell. Thanks for listening.
Buy Small Press Online is the brand new comics marketplace. Looking for a place to purchase the latest of what Small Press has to offer? Are you a creator looking to build an online store? Then this site is just right for you. Head over to buysmallpress.com/lakes and start exploring today.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Oh, going video. What's that in the background? Is that...
I've been doing D&D, and my character's name is Goodyear. Actually, no, it's not D&D. It's another game my friend's making. Very clever man. And my character's called Goodyear, and I was casting around, and this is I don't know. Have you guys seen The Terror?
No, we watched 10 minutes.
Yeah,
didn't we?
about 10, 20 minutes.
Oh no, were you not into it?
It was you, or wouldn't get into it?
Yeah,
Did you?
I don't know.
Yeah,
What is it? I don't know. It's a bit too heavy.
It is. It's probably not one for a pandemic.
No.
We
Not
sort
an
of got a
exploding
cheeky.
teeth.
We watched it by Cheeky Means a couple of years ago, and it was like before all this hit, and that seemed acceptable. But now I'm not sure I'd want to watch it now. It's very good though. When this is all over, I heartily recommend it.
Okay, maybe.
Anyway, it
maybe.
was a D&D background.
We'll
Sorry
see.
about
But I love how everyone says D&D, but it's never D&D. Like, we do the same, don't we?
Yeah, we did.
We're doing
but
Warhammer
we're
one.
not-
Warhammer
Oh,
RPG.
yeah.
But we always say D&D. It's like,
that. Yeah, it's just easier because people know what it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Stop saying.
It makes sense.
Right, well, let's just get straight into this.
Oh, okay, right. I'm
Let's
ready.
dive straight into this. How are you doing anyway?
Wait, is this us diving in, or is this?
This is us just jumping straight in.
Oh, okay.
We don't need to do an introduction. You've been on here numerous times. We're fine.
Yeah, we're all old hats, old friends.
Exactly.
Old lags.
Oh, but just go old now.
Old.
Don't just say old.
Old.
Just old. I just feel old.
I was to say, it's about 2 years since you've been on. How many years have you aged in the past 2 years?
At least 30. What is happening?
That's not too bad. It could be a lot worse, to be fair.
That's an acceptable amount of time.
That'll do. So, how has lockdown been for yourself then?
It's weird because I think having a small child has meant I've been so focused on her not being bored to tears that I've sort of not really realised that everything is terrible as much as I would have done before. Like before having her, I would have taken this very personally. This whole situation, it would have been really bad. But yeah, it's work-wise, it's put a bit of a dampener on things. But you know, apart from that, how about you guys? Have you?
Yeah, it's different, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're at the age where we can go to the pub without worrying about kids, you see. And that was taken away from us.
We couldn't go out anymore. We've had a couple of stroppy teenagers around the house.
I barely noticed the difference.
No, exactly. Other than soft play areas, that's probably the only thing you're missing.
Yeah, soft play. I miss that so much.
That time where they go for an hour and you don't have to do anything but drink coffee.
It always smelled weirdly of biscuits, I think, sort of play area. It's a weird biscuity smell.
Yeah, they really did. They get like those little sort of crumb gullies in green spaces. They're a little bit sticky from fruit shoots.
Yes.
I'm telling myself it was fruit shoots.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Just
Yeah,
leave it
it's
like that.
definitely fruit shoots.
That's not well.
So, UK Comics Laureate 2019 to 2021.
Yeah, I
Congratulations.
don't believe I'll be milking it to the end of the year until Stephen says, excuse me.
Yeah.
Misleading you like it's going to be to the end of 2021. So if
Just
I
take
just
it.
say
Take it.
Laureate
Yeah, I think so.
1921,
Take
And
all of that
nobody-
money as well. So, how did you feel then, looking back now, 2 years ago when you were offered this position? How did you feel back then?
I mean, because I was offered it more than 2 years ago because I was
suppose,
still
yeah.
pregnant at the time.
Yeah.
I thought early motherhood would be very different than it. I thought a couple of months, you know,
Yeah.
she'll be fine. I was just put her on the side of my desk and just carry on
Be fine.
working. But, so were a bit slower than I anticipated. It was a bit sort of, I guess, a bit homebound, a bit desk-bound, because I wasn't really able to go very far anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I was mostly planning, and then the second year, COVID. So that was behind a desk as well. So it's very desk-based.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So your sort of plans back then.
My big golden schemes.
Your big goals. Your work out a way to use comics to teach English.
Yeah, English as an additional language. That was a plan.
And how did you get anywhere? Did anything fit with that?
I've made some. I mean, hopefully there's some contacts. Because the problem is that all the charities that were kind of focused in this area are focusing on their own core work, which is completely understandable because it's not really a time to be taking on new things.
No.
And all funding bodies are focusing on relationships they have already. So new stuff is not really happening. But there's I've sort of, I don't know if it's cheeky to say I kind of like to carry this on after the laureate thing, and because I've not met, because who's met anybody these days, but I've been in contact with people who are very enthusiastic about the idea of using comics in this way. So hopefully something will come of that. I think the Cartoon Museum as well are very keen on doing something in this area as well. So maybe in the future. Perhaps.
I was going to mention that later, but let's stick it in then. The Cartoon Museum, since you slid that in there.
Your format.
We'll jump back to that in a minute. But so, that's just been announced, hasn't it? Do you want to explain your position?
Yeah, explain myself. I was asked if I'd be interested in being a trustee by the late great Alison Brown, the lovely Alison Brown, and a couple of, I don't know when it was now. What is time?
No, but 13 years ago.
13 years ago, roughly, give or take. And I thought that was a lovely idea. I thought but I don't know if I'll actually be asked because I don't have the gravitas of a trustee, or the experience, or the age, or the. I don't really feel like enough of an elderly white man to be a trustee, which is misleading. It turns out there are plenty of trustees who are not elderly white men. It is feasible.
I feel that's jumping out into the survey as well. Will you stop jumping ahead on the interview?
I've seen your notes. I just stop them.
So what's your role going to be then?
So I'm going to be advising, I think, or helping advise. It's sort of, I don't fully understand. I think we all have meetings and we discuss the way that the museum is going. We suggest things. We say we like this, we don't like this, do more of this, do less of this. I have to get back to you after a couple of these meetings because I'm not fully sure. But I know that most people on the board, the other trustees, are quite forthright. I know Steve Bell is there, and he's quite a forthright man, and Martin Rosen, he's quite forthright. They're all forthright, very forthright people. Mm-hmm. So I might just sit and watch for the first couple, get the measure of them, and then but they wanted somebody who was more comics based than cartoons, and so here I am, comics, and I will represent. Watch this space.
I'm kind of feeling sorry for them now. Down the line, meeting 3. Watch out.
I'm going to bring them down to my level.
So I'm going to jump back now. So, so working ways to use comics to teach English then. So you're thinking of, because I think it's only fair that anything you started, you go off and continue, because surely the next Comics Laureate's going to have their own ideas and what they want to do.
I imagine Stephen's got a lot on his mind already. Yeah. But having said that, if there is a lot that the role brings with it, so if there's anybody who would rather have a laureate, I'm very happy to pass it over. If they want, look, it comes with a cloak. You can't beat that cloak.
No, that cloak is amazing.
Unfortunately, you didn't get to officially hand it over yourself, though, did you? That was
yeah. And he hasn't asked for it. So
I was going to say, we can keep the cloak, surely.
Just cut it out.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's just that D&D or whichever role-playing game you're playing.
I said Hermes.
Then the other things you're on your grand list, using comics to promote literacy, and in particular using comics to help literacy within offenders, which I think I was most interested in that point. That was really interesting. So did you get anywhere with that? In I'll say 2 years, in your 1 year.
Sorry, what was that?
Did you get anywhere in regards to working with offenders, or?
Well, slightly. There's been some progress. I met Laura James from the Howard League for Penal Reform, and we had at London Film and Comic Con we met, and we had a really good chat about comics and about criminal justice and our interests that intersect in these two areas. And we sort of we want to set up a pilot scheme for teaching young offenders, helping young offenders understand their rights whilst they're in prison, because they tend to not know them, and they also tend to get trampled on. So it's an important thing. So this is up in a secure unit where she has she does a lot of work there already, and I kind of realised quite early on that probably young offenders are the most vulnerable people, and there are loads of things. There are loads and loads of things that someone said to me, "Can you do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do that." No worries. Sure, I'm to be this guy. No problems. And I realised that probably teaching quite vulnerable young offenders is not that's not fair to them. Really. I've got a friend, Hannah Eaton, whose her book Blackwood has just come out. Very good read. I highly recommend it. But she's been working with troubled young people for I think all of her adult life. It's like her area of expertise. So she, I asked her if she might be interested in doing this pilot, and she said yes. I think her exact phrase was, "Troubled young people are my favourite things on earth." So I think probably the right person for this. So there we go. Or if anybody has any troubled young people, send them to Hannah. She'll help you out.
Email address in the bottom of the notes.
Exactly. So I'm sort of interested to see how it works out and what happens there. But there's I got in touch with the natural it's been a long day. The National Literacy Trust, and I've had a really nice chat with their criminal justice programs leader, and we've sort of said, yeah, we'll do stuff after this is over.
Yeah.
So maybe after this is over, we'll do a thing. Really.
Right, I'd be interested to hear more, because there was something about that was intriguing. Just being able to help people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, they've got a really low level of literacy in prisons, and they tend to be just massively overlooked by society, because they're not, especially with this current government that we find ourselves with. It tends to be their rights are not high on anyone's agenda, so they are treated badly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And then be an ambassador for the medium.
I ambassadored.
You're ambassador.
Ambassadored good.
You ambassador. You definitely ambassadored with the survey, which obviously.
Yeah, that was some good ambassadoring.
Thank you.
Radio 6 as well. That was fun.
I'm taking the link as a good thing.
That was a segue.
That's the word I'm after. Segue. So I personally think that survey. I know it was always your plan to do a survey like that, but it seemed to hit at the right time, I feel.
Yeah, that was actually, I didn't plan the pandemic, but it worked out in my favour, I guess, in that way. Captive audience, very good.
So you adjusted it with the virus in mind as well, I believe. We kind of I started planning this thing and then realised that this pandemic is not going away anywhere, and it would be good to ask questions about everyone's situation as a result of the pandemic, which has been quite good, because I've been able to put that forward to various. It's like there's lots of different arts groups and literary groups that are kind of advocating for different creators in different areas, and it's been kind of good to get in touch with them and say, hey, I have these statistics here. Do these help? So when they're lobbying for creators, they can say, and comics creators are like da 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 da. Can't think of a single stat to put in there, but stats. Before we sort of delve into it a little bit, was there anything in particular that stood out from the survey that you weren't expecting?
No, not that I wasn't expecting. Not so much. No. It kind of clarified, I think, everything that I sort of that we'd sort of assumed. Just how bad the situation is. There are a few people doing very, very well. That was quite heartening, actually. And some people are doing extremely well. Like I need to know who they are. If all anonymous, I'll never find them. If you're listening. Or will I?
I think sometimes TV rights have a lot to do with some of that.
Yeah. The people who are making that much money, there is no way you're making hundreds of thousands of pounds a year on a page rate. There's just
no. There's more to it than that, isn't there? But but we'll never know.
No,
we'll never know.
But this is it, because it sort of raised the point that one of the most important things that we need to be doing is guarding our IP, our intellectual property, and making sure that we are fairly remunerated and we are, we're given credit and money where credit and money are due. And it's a good time to be thinking about our rights in both senses of the word. Especially because comics are so hot right now. Everyone wants to adapt a comic.
Yes.
I think any filmmakers who are listening who care to.
couple of books there. That would be a great Netflix series. So, one of the questions then, who is producing comments? Now, 60% identified as male. So I think we probably would have guessed that. But then because there was quite a large proportion of younger people. Why do you think it's still such a high rate of males when it was quite a young demographic answering as well?
It's not. I think looking at, I don't have the data in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that looking at the gender split over age groups, I think the older groups were almost entirely male, and then with like a smattering of women, and then young groups tend to be more even. Okay. So it does seem like it's sort of heading in a healthy direction, and non-binary as well.
Yeah.
Quite a high number of non-binary and trans creators.
Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty. It's sort of. It seems like it's. I'm not. It doesn't look good on paper, but I think we're heading in the right direction. Yeah. It feels like.
Yeah,
I think. Somebody mentioned that we probably should be doing this survey in a couple of years' time. Like, yes, so.
Well, you do it again. 5 years' time. But it does feel when you walk around a Comic Con, or certainly at particular Comic Cons which are focused more on the comics themselves these days, like Fort Bubble or the Lakes, it does seem a fairly equal proportion normally.
Yeah.
On the small press side, certainly.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think it changes depending on which con you go to, which festival you go to. But it definitely seems more equal. What is quite we are still very white, and that's because the scene is very sort of based around metropolitan hubs. So like London and Glasgow and Leeds in particular, it should be a lot less white. And maybe again, I don't have the details over age because of the age groups, because the numbers were not high enough. But I think it's heading in the right direction. But again, could do better.
It's more the question as to why it isn't, or what's holding people back
getting
into the medium. Because there's nothing financially these days. If you're small press, you can do it yourself, can't you? We've all been there, so it's what's not exciting them about the medium, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, somebody pointed out it could be that people from various minority groups and women are less likely to positively identify as a thing if they're on the fringes. So it could be that there are more people that sort of would have filled in the survey but didn't, because it didn't quite feel like it was for them, but perhaps they would have done with a nudge.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there is always that, but it's strange, but certainly changing.
Yeah, I hope so. I was talking about this with someone else, and now I cannot remember who, but I was talking about the whole, like the sort of, I say the whole Me Too movement in comics, but it seems to be like a long, continuous movement, which is obviously it's very important to do, and it's very healthy, but I worry also that because it's very visible, and it should be visible, but I worry that younger women coming into it will see that and think, oh, this is a bit repellent, this is not for me. I guess we just need to be aware. You just need to be countering it with high profile women.
Yeah.
I will say I am very aware that where I am in my career doesn't necessarily warrant all of the accolades that I've received, I would say. And I know that a lot of this is because I'm a woman, and it does feel a bit awkward being a token, but on the other hand, if you're up for representing, it's awkward, but I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to be there and be visible, and in my in my very feminine way, to try to persuade women that this is for them. And it is a welcoming thing. I've been on Woman's Hour, BBC Woman's Hour. That was fun. Probably converted a few ladies there.
That's good.
Surely.
Looking again about what comics that people are creating, 90% say their work is aimed at an adult audience. That was interesting, again, considering comics are for kids, in brackets. But we do need those comics out there for the kids to pull them into the medium as well. So it's quite interesting that...
Well, this is pure speculation, but I've been wondering if it's because so many more people are working in self-publishing, and because you're kind of working to an audience that you can sell to, and it's sort of hard to do a self-published comic for kids where you're selling to an adult in a festival. I think it might be, I don't know, it might be a trickier sell.
It's a tough one,
it could be that. It's just that's what I was wondering.
Yeah. Yours does all right when we used to be able to go out.
It depends which festival you're at as to which audience has gone to it. So, like, we went the Macclesfield one that attracted more families one. And then I sold better with my kids' comic to that one, and it was free. So you brought in that family group. But if you're going to like an MCM or any of the Lakes or Thought Bubble, you're more interested in it. So you're just getting the same audience each time. So it's getting out of that audience to bring everyone else in.
Yeah.
You've just worked out how to bring the kids in.
But genius!
Solve comic. Do you find, when you're selling comics, do you sort of find yourself addressing kids or addressing their parents, or are you just sort of putting the comics out there and then just, like moths to flames, they all just approach?
Because I had kids approach as well. Well, basically, I had sweets. I was like the child catcher. Come and get the sweets. Yeah. So kids would come over, bring their parents. So, I totally baited the entire table.
Make a note of this. More sweets. Okay.
Definitely have free sweets on the front. But it was the mums. The mums I interacted with more, and then they would then show the comic to the kids. And then if the kids showed an interest, they would buy it. So it's the mums you want to get.
Yeah, because presumably they want to safeguard their kids against this stranger who's offering them sweets.
And a book about anxiety. It really doesn't look good on a table.
It was the Fox one, it's fine. It's about friendship.
I think the other point I just want to look at as well is income levels. Like you say, some people are earning... A few people are earning some...
It's me. I confess it's me. I'm hundreds of thousands. That's me.
I'm definitely that £1,000 or less.
Was that sort of figure what you're expecting, that it's almost 6% made less than 5,000?
Yeah, it was, I think because we all talk about how much we're earning and not money, or not earning, don't we? Like, it's that's our favourite griping subject, I think, in comics. And so I think we all kind of, maybe that wasn't a surprise, but it is quite sobering to see it all laid out like that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you talked about many years ago about how much you actually got paid for a published book. And when you're having a book published and, and
it's not viable. It's not financially viable.
Yeah, it's
Don't do it, kid.
sad. Don't spend 2 years of your life trapped away drawing. Don't do it.
Do it in a few years' time when we worked out this whole system, so people are actually paid enough.
Yeah. I don't know what you'd like to think again with the way the TV world is growing and the way so many more comics are being adapted, not just superheroes, that it would improve, but we can only see at the minute doesn't seem to be so much, does it? So.
Hopefully, I think getting the audience there seems to be. I mean, all the problems lead into each other, but I think getting the audience is quite a big part of it. And convincing people that comics are worth their time is quite a big stumbling block as well, just generally.
So, over the past 2 years, if there was a piece of work that you did that really stood out, which would it be? Which are you most proud of?
I mean, I guess it'd be the survey, because that was the most elaborate. Honestly, it took me so much time, this bloody thing. It was all like, even before doing the Arts Council application, which is laborious, I was still emailing all the people to see if they would be involved, to see who would be involved, to see if anybody would want to fund it, why they should fund it. And then going backwards and forwards with various people and saying, I've done this, does this work for you? Does this work for you? If I do it this way, does this work for you? And then, then it's finally out, and then I'm trying to cajole people into filling it in, and then people have filled it in, I'm trying to bring attention to the results, and I'm trying to talk about the live discussion things, and oh my God, it just went on. Once every 10 years, maybe. Let's do it. Not every year.
I have a feeling when Comic Cons kick back up, it'll keep being discussed. I don't think that's the end of it. I think you'll be dragged out, yeah,
like Dracula, it'll keep coming back.
But I do think it needs to be done again.
Yeah.
Whether it's yourself that does it or somebody
Probably
else.
shouldn't it? So give an idea of the changing state of things.
That's it,
hopefully improvements and more balanced.
Yeah.
What's that? You said you'd like to take it on?
Sorry, we're cutting out. I'm losing you.
She's gone.
Into the tunnel.
Looking back as well, is there anything you wish you had done during the time? It's not stopping you doing anything now, is there? But
yeah, I mean, all of the things that if I'd known in that first year that I wouldn't be doing anything for the second year, I would have, I think, done less of the careful preparations and the planning and more of the actual fund me, do this now than I was trying to do for the second year. I don't know. I mean, I've got really mixed feelings about the whole thing. I just feel really frustrated and sad that I didn't achieve. I feel like a success in some ways and like a massive failure in other ways, which is kind of really annoying. It's really, really annoying.
I can see you continuing it. I might be wrong here, but you seem like the type of person who would. It's not going to stop. You're going to get out there and you're going to achieve whatever you wanted to achieve, and the virus has stopped you doing.
Well, I think the thing as well is that it sort of coincided because just where I was mentally after having a child, I was not really in the frame of mind to be working on my own stuff and trying to sort of promote myself, but I was definitely in the frame of mind of trying to promote like comics as a whole.
Yeah. And
so I'm very sort of keen to keep doing that.
Yeah.
So I get started with my own graphic novel, then you guys are on your own.
Is that being thought of?
Yeah, actually no. I don't think I said I'd never do a graphic novel, and I never will. But I will do another comic.
And if there's any advice you can offer to Stephen as he takes this pretend cape because you're not passing it over, what would it be?
Oh God. I mean, I think I said that. I'm sorry. I'm saying exactly what I said to John Freeman in his Down the Tubes article.
Oh, get off! If you're talking to him before, let's get off.
I know I said this a bit exclusive, but I really think that the role really opens a surprising number of doors, and there's a lot of people out there that from different organisations, different backgrounds, different areas of the arts, different areas of like all kinds of public-facing things that and education. Sorry, obviously education as well. That's a big part. But there's lots of different people who hadn't considered comics, and they're having someone who is like an official sounding ambassador come forward and say, "Would you like to work with me?" Not in that tone of voice, because that's well.
That does sound weird.
No, definitely that tone of voice.
Like you said that, but in a more normal tone of voice. Then I think people are kind of intrigued and I've been honestly quite surprised by how keen people are to work with comics.
That's good.
Yes, that's my advice. Just go with it. Swagger around.
Definitely.
If you get yourself a badge up saying Comic Laureate 2019 to 2021, then the sash, yeah.
The sash is better.
Then you will still be treated the same way.
Bikini optional, but sash.
Yeah, but the sash is definite. Maybe a
feminist
tiara.
Feminist rights.
Tiara, yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time, Hannah.
Thank you.
And I'm going to talk on behalf of the whole comics community, even though I've got no right to.
Well, just go for it now.
Just
You
go
said
for it.
now.
I'm going to do it. To thank you for the work you put in the past 2 years.
Thank you.
I really, I've enjoyed it.
Glad it's over. Enjoyed it, though.
Never again.
Thank you very much, Hannah.
Yakapedia, Yakapedia with my Yakapedia, Yakapedia with my
How do? I'm Pete Taylor.
And I'm Mike Williams.
And we are the creators and compilers of the Comics Yakapedia, a giant multi-volume encyclopedia that contains everything interesting about comics that is worth yakking about.
As custodians of this mighty tome, it's our duty to review, amend and correct its many thousands of entries to ensure it remains the definitive library of comic lore and trivia.
But we will also be requiring the help of you, our loyal podcast listeners, to help keep the Yakapedia up to date and supply your own intriguing comics data. More on this at the end. Mike, how's it going?
Not too bad. Feels like the end is in sight.
Yeah, slow, but yeah, light at the end of the tunnel. Right, have we got anything for Kickstarter Corner?
Nothing new to report on, but hang on. I realise this is a podcast, but I'll show you the cover of Mark Abnett's This Landed.
Nice.
And if I turn it slightly, you can see the nice little holographic foil.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
It's quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah, was that a stretch goal, was it?
Yeah, it was kind of like the final throw-in. He was very conservative with stretch goals, which is the right thing to do because it was really a matter of weeks since the Kickstarter ended and it landed on the doorstep, which is just, well, unheard of, isn't it, really? Yeah. Really pleased with that. Good work, Mark. And looking forward to the next one, which I think is going to be a fast follower.
Cool. Yeah, quite a few of the Kickstarters I've mentioned recently have ended. So I did take quite the hit to the wallet for the Hellboy documentary Kickstarter when that eventually went, because I did cave and go for the bigger tiered Blu-ray reward tier.
Right.
I think at the end that meant I got digital link, naming the credits, double disc Blu-ray with extra bonus features, the postcard set, and the T-shirt.
I know the credits was important to you.
Flipping out. But yes, I'm gonna have to wait. I think it's a year. I think 2022.
It's been widely advertised as well, wasn't it? Whilst it was on that Kickstarter, they've got quite a few famous people coming in for interviews as well, haven't they?
Yeah, loads. Yeah, Neil Gaiman, a lot of the artists. It looks amazing. So no, I'm chuffed, but it was a case of. But equally, all I'm doing at the moment is working. So it's nice to have something like that to back and look forward to arriving as well.
Yeah. I suppose I have to ask at this point: have you seen Kong versus Godzilla?
I have,
and
I didn't realise that it was going to be a dual. I suppose we should be used to this now with the Wonder Woman 1984. I just thought I was going to have to wait for it to, pop into the cinema. And I have said it would be one of the few things that I'd brave going to the cinema to see. But lo and behold, I think I was looking up something for the girls and it was on Google Play. 16 quid.
Yeah, that's pretty much the price everywhere. We haven't seen it yet.
To be fair, that would have been the price of me and the girls going.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I always used to sneak to the cinema to see the films that we went to see together. Obviously, they were in school when that first got released. So most of the Marvel movies and any other sort of genre films that we all used to go and see, I would generally sneak to the cinema on my own during the day, being in charge of my own time, being self-employed. I'd go and see it, but I wouldn't mention it to them at all. I'd just be all excited the same as they were to go at the weekend. But I was like, I'm not taking any chances of any of this getting spoiled. So I'd usually see these films at least twice, sometimes 3 times if the girls wanted to go back. So I thought, £16, no problem. Didn't even think twice, about watching it.
See, I knew you'd done this before, but I didn't know it was repeat behaviour.
Yeah, they did find out. They did find out as well. They were properly annoyed when they found out. I can't remember which one it was, but they were like, "What? You've seen every single one without us before you took us?" I was like, "Yep, sorry." And I'd have done it with this one as well. So yeah, got all ready, and just the fact. I mean, I was absolutely sat there grinning ear to ear in a lot of the scenes, just for the fact that you've got a monster movie with 2 cracking, well-known behemoths battling before your eyes. So we're not talking something that's similar to them or with a nod and a wink you're supposed to believe is them. It was Godzilla versus Kong. Yeah. So for a lot of the movie, I was just chuffed to bits that they'd made something of the standard they had that included properly what it said on the tin. I think overall I had reservations about the surrounding story and some other elements, but I won't say anything. Perhaps we'll have a more a bigger discussion once more people have had the chance to watch it. I think it's too early doors to go down to the nuts and bolts. But yeah, I watched it at least. I tried to watch it a couple of times afterwards because you got your 48 hours to watch it. But of course, I kind of condensed it by just watching the cool bits. So, but yeah, I was chuffed to bits. It was just like going to see that Avengers movie for the first time. That you've had these leading movies that have slowly dawned on you. You know, I didn't know when they released Godzilla that they even planned to do a Kong movie, really.
No, it wasn't until much later it was kind of made obvious that it was all leading up. Yeah.
Once that, it was, I was probably more excited than the Avengers, because there's slightly less to worry about. You're not worried about costumes being wrong, or you're not worried about casting. It's like, okay, so this version of Godzilla is the way he is, But in point of fact, you're just talking about watching 2 monsters smack hell out of each other in various locales. Yeah, which is absolutely
the biggest boost they had was when they released just that first punch.
Yeah,
it was absolutely crazy. Honestly, for hours after that, they just released that small clip. That was just crazy.
The trailer, I have to say, probably was unbeaten in terms of favourite bits. In that battle on the tanker is probably my favourite bit out of the entire film. And that's the opening salvo. But I think it might be a bit unfortunate that they couldn't top it for me, but I just for sheer drama and for sheer sort of jaw-dropping monsterness. Yeah, loved it.
That's that, because I know
Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
I would totally rent it again as well. There was lots and lots to love about it, but it'd be good to have a proper discussion when people have seen it themselves. Now on to mailbag madness, Mike. just literally round the corner from Kickstarter corner, we've entered mailbag madness. We've had another missive in from a friend of the show, Jordan Thomas, ace comic book creator, has written in. I'm a big Constantine fan, and I think his publishing history is really interesting. Going from the main DC universe in Saga of the Swamp Thing, off into Hellblazer, his own superhero universe title, that has crossovers with Swampy, then into Vertigo, once it formed in 94, I think, and then getting pulled back into the DCU in a younger version. The Vertigo version aged in real time before being fired into irrelevance in issue 300. And Constantine was even part of a Justice League team before moving back off to Black Label and the Sandman universe. So thanks for writing in, Jordan. It's an intriguing journey for a character, isn't it? That they start off, bringing it back to Easter eggs as well. He actually started off as a kind of background cameo of Sting, didn't he?
Yes.
In the early issue of Saga of the Swamp Thing. And I think Alan Moore asked, is it John Totalben? That's one of those that you can read, but you rarely.
I was going to say I've never seen it before in my life.
So he asked the artists what they wanted to draw more of, and they said Sting. So Alan Moore, developed this character that allowed them to put this cameo character from a background in another scene into the main title proper, and from that, he has ended up bopping around. He's obviously bopped around the universe like any character would, but in particular, he's one of these characters that has been sectioned off and allowed to be fenced off and not used in the main universe for a period of time, and now that's been sort of overturned, hasn't it?
Well, yeah. Jordan kind of gave the timeline quite well there. Like you said, with the Saga of the Swamp Thing, he was in the black and red shirt as Sting in the background before it got properly developed. But it's an odd one because between 88 and 93, so that's like the DC Hellblazer series, he also kind of popped up in things like Shade the Changing Man and Lucifer.
Oh, okay.
And then when he went over to Vertigo in 93, that was kind of like you said, that really was quite exclusive. He didn't move anywhere. It was purely within the self-contained Vertigo universe until, so within that universe there was the Sandman and the Books of Magic. Brightest Day? God, that's 2010 though, isn't it? And then it wasn't until, was it 2011, 2012, that's when suddenly became part of Justice League Dark. And I think that was quite a confusion, because I think you thought I was the Hellblazer expert, but it's actually my sister who's the big Constantine fan. And I know from her reaction at the time that it was all very confusing, because I think Hellblazer fans were all not unused to crossovers, but it wasn't superhero-y, because Swamp Thing never really had that whole superhero vibe as such.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, actually, the reaction, because it introduced a lot of people, which was a good thing. It kind of did isolate a few of the older fans, I think, though. And I think history kind of got retweaked slightly, didn't it, as well, at that point, in order to kind of slide him into that continuity.
Yes.
There's a few things that got...
everything did, didn't it? Everyone got sort of younger. Certain things were allowed to have remained in place, I think, history-wise. Certain ones weren't. I mean, so when he joined Vertigo, was it a case of they moved his book? Just it started not in Vertigo, didn't it? And then it was chosen to be one of the early Vertigo titles, or was it always Vertigo?
No, it was DC. Only moved to DC Vertigo in '93.
Okay.
This is officially Hellblazer.
Hellblazer.
Hellblazer was going since '88, which was just purely DC.
Right.
But DC don't have a single universe themselves. They do have offshoots, don't they? Different continuities don't cross over. Allows them to do quite a lot of different genres and stuff. Because, again, you were mentioning, we were talking about this earlier, it's not the case for Marvel. Marvel tends to be a single universe.
Yeah, they'll have their more mature titles, won't they? Like Max or Marvel Knights to a certain extent. But the fact that a character is in that stream, if you like, doesn't stop other characters from bumping into them. But that was what was different about Vertigo, wasn't it? Is once that title became Vertigo, you couldn't just decide to use those characters. They were off limits. So you couldn't have Constantine in Action Comics or in Batman, which he had previously crossed over. There was a Batman annual, I think, wasn't there, that was crossed over with Swamp Thing, or he was in a Swamp Thing annual. So, yeah, Marvel's had a much more freewheeling, you can use anybody at any point. I can't remember them sectioning things off unless in the same way that Vertigo was. It was very much a sort of locked room for certain characters.
It was. I mean, the current state of affairs. So after Rebirth, he's now firmly part of the core DC universe, isn't he? And history is fully restored. And because of that fact.
TV's probably had a lot to do with that, do you think?
Yes, it has, yeah. The Constantine series I did watch. It was interesting. My sister liked it, and then proceeded to spend 3 hours telling me everything that was wrong or different on every level. But she, I think she's a little like me. You forgive these things for seeing something visually. Somebody's had a go, and that does actually count for a lot in my mind. And I thought I did quite enjoy it. What I haven't caught is well, the disappointment was it got cancelled. I was just by the end of that series, you're getting really into it, and they cancelled it. But of course, the same actor has been brought in playing the same part in one of the other TV series. Is it
Legends of Tomorrow?
Is it Legends of Tomorrow? It could be. I watched the first. It was definitely not the first season or two of that, because I watched those and then kind of stopped. But I am aware that he came in. I think he might have crossed into Green Arrow or something as well. But yeah, and I'm guessing that's probably earned a lot of fans along the way as well. And I think it's inevitable now. I think he's in the DC universe to stay.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was also interesting. I think I remember Vertigo itself was stopped as an imprint by DC. I think was it in 2020.
Yeah.
And they folded it into what is now their mature line of books called Black Label. But I think they did that. I seem to remember at the time reading that it was a sort of issue of perceived ownership. And I think because the Vertigo branding didn't include any DC, connected brand, that a lot of people didn't know when they bought a Swamp Thing or a Constantine book or graphic novel that it was part of, DC publishing.
Right.
And I thought there was the move to DC Black Label put things in a much clearer sort of ownership. I mean, maybe I've remembered that wrong, but I think that was one of the reasons at the time that they did put an end. Also, I suppose we do need to remember Vertigo did have a slightly different form of remuneration for creators, of course, and rights. There was an ability to keep some rights to some of the titles, depending on the deal. So, yeah. I
think that was one of the things that was always lamented about with Vertigo going down.
Yeah.
And I guess that brings up, because you actually mentioned an example, didn't you, going into the Vertigo space again with Watchmen.
Yes. Well, I was trying to think of characters that did move in the same way that Jordan mentioned Constantine moving. I did think of Animal Man and Doom Patrol, because they started outside in the normal DC universe.
I'd forgotten about Doom Patrol completely.
Yeah, and they got sucked in. They got sucked into Vertigo, and sort of, so you weren't able to be using them at all. But I mean, Doom Patrol's slightly different. Again, it's got the TV angle now, but they've also had their own Gerard Way run imprint, Young Animal, which had other Shade the Changing Girl, I think, wasn't it, as well. So it's had more than one sort of locked room, if you like, more than one stopped stream. But Animal Man, he's another one who was changed in New 52. I didn't read them, but that very strong Vertigo title, written by Grant Morrison. I think Jeff Lemire was writing the New 52 version as well, wasn't he? And that's widely talked about. They were the only characters I could think of that had that similar DC journey, but it did start to make me think of characters that have been pulled into universes. So in a similar way of Constantine being moved to a different part of the DC universe. DC has been one of the comic companies that has kind of enveloped other comic characters from different companies. So people like Uncle Sam and the Freedom Fighters, Black Hawk, Plastic Man, they were all developed at a completely different comic company. I think it's perhaps something that happens a little more now because of the freedom for licensing, or the fact that companies will keep the ownership of characters more nowadays and license them out. But back then, once Quality Comics ceased publication, I think about 1956, then back then they were just comic books and they were just comic book characters. They weren't considered.
There was no IP culture or anything particularly on them, and it was pretty much a legal wilderness. So
they were just left. But I think that was an 80s acquisition for DC. Fawcett was another one. They went defunct in 1980. I was quite surprised they lasted as long as they did. And famous publishers of the original Captain Marvel. And DC licensed Captain Marvel in 72 from Fawcett, and then purchased him in 94. So 14 years after the company went bust. So I suppose now we are starting to see people being more interested in licensing, and even though they're gone bust, they must have, defended their copyright or included all of the elements, they needed to keep it.
Well, I'm not sure if I've got the story straight in my head then, because I thought they got the character, but they couldn't actually publish it as Captain Marvel because Marvel owned that copyrighted as a title. And what they wanted more from buying Captain Marvel was the Shazam catchphrase.
Marvel, again, spotting that something wasn't in print. So even though Fawcett was actually carrying on as a publisher and they published other titles, the fact that to Marvel, I think they were a little chancier with some of their choice of titles. They saw that one wasn't being published, kind of thought to themselves, well, we should have that anyway. I think perhaps they even just chanced their arm of publishing it to see if they could claim the copyright, which just by publishing, I think it was 67, something like that, they did their version of Captain Marvel.
It seems to be who's using that word or phrase currently is the owner. And as soon as you lapse,
you've got a certain time. Yeah, you've got a certain time you have to publish something to keep it, haven't you? I mean, Marvel famously lost, I think, the Champions copyright to, I think, was it an RPG company?
It was, yes. Yeah, that's how I heard about it.
Yeah. So if you're not hot on it and you don't release a comic with your, title character in it at the required time, then you've lost it. So they sneaked in 67, and that's why they then owned the copyright to Captain Marvel. So from 73, I think, which was when DC started releasing it, they could call Billy Batson's alter ego, they could call him Captain Marvel inside the comic, but on the cover,
yeah,
it has to say Shazam. And I think they only recently went the whole sort of hog, and he's now known as Shazam, isn't he? So
yeah,
his magic word is also the name that he uses himself. So I don't quite know how they get around that in the stories. I mean, they also came along and picked up Daredevil, which was previously a Lev Gleason Publications character as well, which was about 63. So again, that wasn't being published. There's quite a few characters. We've talked about Amazing Man and such that other companies can just pick up and publish. Everyone's got right to these out of copyright characters, but DC, did carry on picking up other companies and therefore their characters. They acquired Wildstorm, Jim Lee's company, in 99, and that was kept largely separate. That was something that did exist as an imprint, so a bit like Vertigo was a part of DC. Wildstorm was a part of DC. They were allowed, I think, to create autonomously. So titles like Authority and Wildcats, etc., they had no connection to the DCU. They didn't exist in the same space. But then again, New 52, that was what brought in those titles to the main DC universe. So I suppose we are seeing DC standardly use an event to fold in the acquired characters.
I mean, I think I have come to the conclusion that the New 52 was more than anything suggested by their legal department.
Yeah,
because it was an opportunity to sweep a lot under the carpet or put a final stamp on something like, this is ours. This is part of our universe.
And I think they learned it from Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
Because that was the previous time that they folded in all of the quality characters, so the Freedom Fighters and I think Black Hawk. They'd previously existed on a separate Earth. I think was it Earth X possibly, and Earth S for Shazam was where Shazam sort of lived. They might have interplanetary sort of vibrational adventures, but they were a separate Earth. You weren't going to bump into them. You had to go through a special rigmarole to get to them. And then in 85, 86, Crisis is where they folded these previously published characters. The most famous, certainly, or the one that made the biggest impact, you could argue, was the Charlton characters, which they acquired in 1983. And they were in a sort of special project developed by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. They were going to be the people to do the first adventure starring the Charlton heroes, which were the main ones being The Question, Captain Atom, Blue Beetle, Peacemaker, Nightshade, and Judo Master. But the story they put together was seen to be a bit too bleak for these characters, or certainly wasn't the flavour that they wanted the adventure to be introduced in. And they then were encouraged to take another view of those characters. So I suppose for a certain age of comic fan, it's very famous, but maybe people don't know that those Charlton heroes then went on to become Watchmen. So Rorschach was born from Question. Dr. Manhattan is a version of Captain Atom. Night Owl, Blue Beetle, Comedian, Peacemaker, Silk Spectre, Nightshade, and Ozymandias from Judo Master. Peacemaker, he's going to be appearing in the Suicide Squad. So,
yes, yeah.
Even these obscure characters are going to become more well known.
I'm hoping, because it always felt a bit sad to me, like they acquired these characters and all they were used as was archetypes.
Yeah. For
a brand new set. So I'm quite glad that some of them are going to get kind of reused again. But yeah, it's amazing how I think a lot of people possibly don't know this, because the number of articles I've read about Watchmen, and they still try and say that Night Owl is Batman, and they're trying to equate them to modern day current superheroes quite a lot. So I feel like it might be an age thing, as you say. A lot of people don't appreciate where they actually came from.
Well, it's funny to look at the list now and see who has become, I think Question at the time, Question, I think Captain Atom and Blue Beetle all had their own titles.
Yeah.
And they were in, like I said earlier, they were in Crisis, and they became characters who wandered around the DC universe. So Blue Beetle in particular, out of that list, is probably the bigger name out of these now, which when they first came about, I think perhaps Captain Atom was perhaps seen as being the more obviously sort of superheroic star. But Question and Blue Beetle, I think, have actually turned out to be the ones with the longest lives. And I think, that's pretty much it. Going back to Marvel, other characters that they managed to inherit or buy. Recent acquisitions were Angel in 2013, which was a character Neil Gaiman created for Spawn, Todd McFarlane's Spawn. They had a bit of a falling out, a long time legal wrangle about ownership before it was awarded to Gaiman.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, he was in court for quite a while trying to prove the ownership, and this whole time there were miniseries and toys and lots of appearances by Angela. I don't know if that was part of the reason why, when he did gain ownership, that he then turned round and licensed, let her be bought, but she's now wholesale a sort of Marvel Comics character.
There will be a big financial incentive if there's merchandise. Oh yeah.
Well, she was introduced in the Marvel Universe, I think was it the last episode of Age of Ultron or something like that, and I think since I think she's been declared as Thor's sister, so firmly entrenched, if that's right. I don't know if it's stuck, but I'm sure there was one storyline where they made her Thor's sister. And Marvelman, of course, in 2013, there was a lot of pomp and ceremony about the announcement that Marvel had really gone back to the all the way through. It's had a very twisted legal ownership history. I think there's an actual book written about the battle, but they went back to the sort of source with Mick Anglo, who was the person to create them for a British comic company in the 50s, and that seemed to be the thing that enabled them to republish the previous adventures, finish, I think, the last volume of the Neil Gaiman, Mark Buckingham storyline. And they have announced, and apparently, I think I was reading just to check up just before we started, 2019 there was supposed to be a new series from Gaiman and Buckingham, but it's not appeared. Obviously, a few things happen in between, but it is yet to be, Marvelman's yet to be integrated into the Marvel Universe or appear in any form that wasn't sort of previously planned.
Right.
But he's firmly owned by them. So yeah, it was quite interesting. I took a slightly different route to thinking of characters than perhaps Hellblazer, but it's interesting to consider how many or the different approaches that comic companies have to license characters now, of course, which I think you're going to touch on a little bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, now we're talking more modern day, it's all down to the licensing. I mean, cross-company continuity crossovers I think they're so common nowadays. One thing I wanted just to add, old school one, because it's been about 3 episodes and neither of us have mentioned Conan, so it just seems well overdue.
Drink.
2 of our favourites. Elric actually appeared in Conan. It was and that's a strange one. That's a literary character that crosses continuity with Conan, written by, well, the current Conan writer at the time and the literary owner Michael Moorcock. I thought that was quite cool. I thought it was a very 70s thing. I mean, it was a bit more free then. It was like, hey, that's a good idea. Yeah, let's just do it.
Yeah,
and I quite like that approach. But I guess the most promiscuous of the crossover publishers has to be Dynamite and Top Cow. And that's where you've got Red Sonja, Witchblade, Vampirella, Tarzan, Dija Thoris, Jungle Girl, Barbarella. I mean, the number of times that they've crossed over into sort of so many other publishers' continuities, it's unbelievable. Gail Simone's Dija Thoris, Vampirella, Red Sonja, Jungle Girl, Owen Cato, Swords of Sorrow. That is actually quite quality in parts. I really do like that, no matter how cheesy some of the concept is. But I suppose, yeah, it's an interesting crossover, that one. But it's amazing just how many different universes they step into. There's a Vampirella and Archie, I think, or is it Red Sonja and Archie? Vampirella and Archie, isn't there?
Yeah.
Again, it's been several episodes, and I haven't mentioned aliens. The Alien or Predator versus, and there's been some stinkers. There really have. I'm a huge fan of AVP as as an IP. Alien versus Judge Dredd, I really didn't like. It was fine for Judge Dredd because it kind of fitted the whole. They have aliens, as in general interstellar aliens, within the Judge Dredd universe. That's fine. It didn't seem to disrupt Dredd's continuity particularly, but I didn't think the story was particularly strong or original. But they've actually gone into manga with Alien versus Ninjas, versus Green Lantern, Alien versus Zombies, Alien versus Batman was again hugely disappointing. But the one that really worked for me, I bet you wouldn't guess I would say this, but it was Alien versus Superman. It was actually really well done.
All right.
And it paralleled the film Aliens so well. Whereas Superman was simply the United States colonial marines.
Right.
As a person. In fact, when Infestation is known about, it happens to be on a Kryptonian archipelago, where he goes, thankfully given a ship, which was from LexCorp, who basically play the role of Weyland Yutani Corporation in this. And that's very neat. There is a Ripley look-alike and act-alike called Cal, who even sports the M240 incinerator that Ripley does, or very similar looking anyway. But it does actually kind of work. It's quite cool that Lois Lane has quite a bit more of an action role in it as well. Back at Earth sort of thing, trying to prevent them bringing it back.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's just an odd one for it to work. I really wasn't expecting that one. But and I was going to ask whether or not you'd read the Batman Hellboy Starman crossover.
I have. It's a long time ago. I can't remember a lot about it. I'm a bigger fan of the Hellboy Goon crossover.
Yes.
Which was fab. So, and they seem to go together a little bit better than that.
I mean, it was a bit. It just didn't make sense. The whole Batman Hellboy. It's a Hellboy story, and it's great. Batman is really only in there to provide him a first-class plane. That's kind of it. That's all his role is in the entire thing. It just seems weird to bring Hellboy into Metropolis, but into Gotham. Yeah, I wasn't sure whether you'd. I'd forgotten about the Goon crossover actually.
That was a good one.
So it's kind of one of these. They're the more modern day, and it's very much about licensing, isn't it? It's actually with permission. It's a full legal collaboration sort of thing. But I had an odd one, which has only really just come to light at the moment. And I feel like Marvel might be painting themselves into a corner here, where they did a Marvel Fortnite crossover, as in Fortnite the game.
Yeah.
And basically what they allowed was Thor and Doctor Doom to enter Fortnite Island. I'm not a Fortnite player. Don't really understand it.
No.
My godson loves it. It's the most violent thing ever watching him play. But it's a beautiful and anarchic game. I just absolutely love the imagery. But they've allowed sort of like Thor and Doctor Doom into the storyline. But Marvel then went on to basically announce that it's canon. And even hint at the fact that Fortnite Island is in the crosshairs of Galactus. So it's like as an in-game event. But the island also hosts lots of DC properties, like Batman and Harley Quinn are there already.
Right.
And within app purchases, it basically crosses over everything. I think you can buy things like John Wick skins and things like that. So by saying it's canon, I think they may be slightly problematic for them. I mean, it's no problem to say Fortnite Island, is somewhere in the Marvel universe. It's just the fact that that itself crosses over with so many other different IPs and continuities.
Strange.
I mean, unless this is Disney kind of trying to join up everything. Oh yes, we'll do a John Wick skin for you. Like 2 months down the line, yes, Disney have announced they have bought John Wick. I mean, it could just be that, I don't know, but I think it's quite odd when they come out with things like and announce things are canon, because I think people were asking questions. It could well be. I think there's going to be comics at the back of this. I think there has been one already, but.
Right.
It just seems an odd announcement to make.
Yeah, that seems weird.
That's probably everything I have on the world of crossovers at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to put it in under C for company...
Cross-company continuity crossover. That's I got 4 in there.
All the C's. There you go. Cross-company crossover continuities. Well, I think that's all we've got for you tonight. A quick thanks to Jordan for his contribution, and also to friend of the show, Gustavo Vargas, who has sent in a contribution to the upcoming Easter egg episode. We asked for favourite hidden characters, Easter eggs, or cameos, so appearances of other characters, much like we're talking about today. There's been plenty of times characters have been snuck into books. I was listening to a podcast, one of my favourite comic podcasts that's not this one, called Word Balloon. And they had an online charity event with lots of creators sketching while talking. And the subject came to sneaking characters into your comic story. One of the Tintin was a big favourite, which I think one of the creators was talking about how it's a real no-no nowadays. If you do sneak one in, you just as well not mentioning it, because you do get the legal departments getting very sweaty at the thought of you putting somebody else's property in your book. Now, back in the day, which is what we're asking for favourite entries on, it was seen as a bit of fun, and I think it's less so now. In fact, Walt Simonson, who was one of the people on the podcast, he actually said that he regretted putting in one of his famous inserts into his Thor run. In Thor 341, he has Thor assume a new secret identity, and he puts on a pair of glasses. I think the dialogue says something like, well, it worked for the other guy, or something like that. And then later in the story, he actually bumps into Clark Kent, knocks him on the floor. Lois Lane's there, giving him short shrift, just get a move on, we've got somewhere else to be. And Clark Kent looks and thinks, oh, that guy looks familiar. It's only about 3 panels. But Walt now thinks that scene has overshadowed the rest of the book, and that people talk about this cameo and the time when Clark Kent was in Thor, and it was a more informal company crossover, and he thinks that that's all that people pay attention to in that book now. It's known for that. Which
we've just proved, in fact.
Yeah.
Because that's all we're going to discuss on that book.
That's not going to mention anything else. and he thinks that it's overshadowed the rest of the book, and he wouldn't do it now if he had the choice. So I think it is an element that is going to be harder to see or to spot, or you've just got to be a little craftier in sneaking it in. There was talk on the podcast about the amount of products or even buildings that now take very seriously they see it as infringing on their copyright. So
crazy.
Yeah, they discussed spam. Apparently, you disparage spam. They've got a very fiery legal department that would be very quick to contact you. But also, surprisingly, they mentioned the Chrysler Building. The famous New York landmark is apparently very keen to get any cash from any appearance their building makes in any medium. So I think whether it's TV, film, or comics. So if you are using their building prominently, I suppose to make your sometimes these brands are kind of used to reflect on your own, aren't they? So it's a very stylish building. It obviously brings a lot of different elements to another brand just by putting somebody next to it. Well, they're not having it now. So if you put it on the front cover,
isn't that crazy? I mean, it's a public landmark.
Yeah,
I find
it's iconic, isn't it? Yeah, it really is. But it's interesting. So that's where this has led, I think, much like this has become. Maybe we need to put a cross-reference in licensing, because what we are really talking about is how things have gone on from being able to pick up a character that's not been used for a while or a name to now everyone being aware of the perceived value of a name or a brand.
Yeah. And yet, if somebody was disparaging about the Chrysler Building, they could probably get away with it under parody.
Yeah, you make enough changes, and it's only three, isn't it? 3 changes. So yeah, if you can imply it rather than, but woe betide you actually use it.
Yeah, stick a McDonald's on the top floor, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Weird. Did not know about buildings. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, look it up. It was a charity draw for the Hero Initiative, I think, on Word Bullying Podcast. Well, that's it. That's all she wrote for the good book tonight. If you have suggestions for entries, submissions of your own, things to review, or you just want to ask that comics-related question you were always afraid to ask, the Yakapedia is here for you.
You can email us at comicartpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook by searching @comicartfestpod, or use the form on the comicartpodcast.wordpress.com forum blog to contact us.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next entry.
Good night.
Yakapedia, Yakapedia, Yakapedia with my country. Yakapedia, Yakapedia, Yakapedia with my country.
Thank you for listening to my dulcet tones and their northern ramblings. Find out more about the Lakes International Comic Art Festival at comicartfestival.com and find us on Twitter at comicartfestpod or online at comicartpodcast.uk.